Today's episode, we're going to discuss this idea of being the change. It has a lot of different components, and it's a really integral part of You Not Me and everything that Chris stands for. Um, so, Chris, just to start, why did you choose Be the Change as one of the slogans for You Not Me, and what does it mean?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest really heartbeat behind You Not Me is creating change, and first and foremost, it's in your own life. It's in your own heart. It's looking at and reflecting upon how you're choosing to live, and and making the change inside of yourself first before you step out and be the change in the world. And so, part of the whole process is really deep reflection on who I was as a man. And when I looked around and I saw what was happening to the world, I felt like one of the biggest things that I saw consistently was that men were not loving, leading, and serving the way that we're really called to. So, for me, it was wanting to create change in the world, but I had to do that myself first. I had to take the time to really look at how I was living, how I was just loving my wife and my kids, and how I was showing up to work every day, and the kind of friend I was being, and make sure that was I being who I really wanted to be? Was I walking towards the purpose that I had in my life? And once I got that straight, and granted, still a work in process, but trying to make sure that I knew who I wanted to be, and made changes in my own heart, in my own mind, then to step out and see just the need in the world around us. You see people that are broken, that are hurting, that whether it comes from something from their past, whether it's from their family, from their parents, not being loved unconditionally and constantly striving and trying to prove themselves in ways that were actually destructive to them in the long run, and to people around them, but also just things that have happened, whether it's being treated poorly by other people or circumstances or trials that are out of their control, that just they fell into. And sometimes what happens when we go through those hard times, we fall into just the current of the culture, and we just do what everybody else does. We see how people around us respond and react to circumstances and trials, and we act in like kind. And sometimes we see how people treat us, and we act in like kind. And that's not the way to an amazing life. The way to an amazing life is proactively looking out and pre-deciding how you're going to treat other people, but most importantly, looking for the need around you. And when you do, be the change, be different than the culture. Because when you do that, when you show up with a heart that's for other people, when you do everything to go above and beyond, and just go the extra mile in things that you do, show up with excellence. Um, when you just critically think and problem solve to be a solution finder, versus just a negative person that points out all the things that are wrong. That's how you can be the change, is you can really make a difference. And when people show up that way, you show up different. It's the intangibles that create an amazing leader, or an amazing salesperson, or an amazing teammate, is somebody that has all those attributes.
So, one of the things that you mentioned in there repeatedly is just this idea of being able to see the need around you. I think a lot of people talk about um, be the change that you want to see in the world. But to even see a change that you want to see happen in the world, a lot of people might not even have that step nailed down yet. So, in order to get to the point where, maybe not only I'm seeing problems or I'm seeing issues, but I'm saying, hey, this is something that I can do something about. What needs to happen in my own heart before I can start to take those steps?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is first and foremost is just realizing who you are. Some of it goes back to your family name. What does that stand for? My hope is that people have a family name that they're proud of, that they have parents that have loved them unconditionally. But if you haven't, part of it is just reconciling relationships. And sometimes the relationships are broken, maybe not because of something we've done, but maybe it's because of the brokenness inside of somebody else. And some of that goes back to forgiving other people for things that they've done to you, but also forgiving yourself. I think a big step in that is looking at who you are and what you've done, and realizing there's a great quote from Bono from a U2 song where he said, "I did what I did until love came to town." And part of that is, it was so important to find at least one relationship in your life where you truly feel like you're loved, and most importantly, loved unconditionally, to where you feel safe to make a mistake and to possibly even fail multiple times, but for that person to still say it's okay. And they have a forgiveness, a mercy, a grace for you. Because if we're all honest, we've all made mistakes. And the biggest basis of a relationship is not the initial coming together as a friendship. It's actually the longevity of how do you stick together through the good and the bad times. And what happens is too often something hard happens, whether it's someone makes a mistake or says something incorrectly or didn't think about the other person. And then we instinctively just say, you know what? Well, they're not for me, so I'm going to cast them out. Instead of saying, I've actually been that before to other people. I've fallen short and I've been forgiven. People have allowed me to come back into the fold, and I can step forward in trusting and faith in that relationship, knowing that I'm loved. And so once we understand how loved we are, then we can step out into that love and step out into that relationship with other people.
When it comes to being the change, when I actually want to go and take a step to meet a need that I see in the world, how does you not me maybe inform some of the first steps that I'm going to take in terms of how I go about that? 'Cause I think one thing that people can identify repeatedly, and some people maybe who do acts of charity, is that a lot of it's actually quite selfish. People are doing things for themselves, for their own reputation, for their own popularity, for people to go, oh, wow, what a great guy he is, or what a great girl she is. Um, so, what does you, not me, have to say about actually being the change, and not just um, maybe why you do something, but even how you do something like that?
Yeah, no, I think part of the life is a lot of us we just don't think, we don't look around and really read what's going on in people's lives, and one of the things is obviously seeing someone that's hurting, seeing when someone that's struggling. And sometimes you don't even know that's happening because a lot of us are really good at putting on a mask that we're fine. And so a lot of it comes down to a deep relationship where you actually ask questions, you actually get to know them beyond a surface level. But really to in order to be the change, in order to see the need and to step out, is you have to have a pure heart. You have to say, I want to do this for somebody, not so that I can get, but so I can give. And it's interesting. I remember speaking to a group of high school students, and we were just having this discussion of what pure-hearted service looks like. And this one young girl raised her hand, and she said, "Well, what if I do something for somebody and they don't say thank you?" And I said, "Well, let me just ask you a question. Did you do it so you could get a thank you?" Because that's the problem. Is too often we do things, and sometimes it's out of a good heart because we want to help somebody, but then also we want to know that they appreciate it. And really, the greatest act of service is self-sacrifice, is giving of your life and maybe even possibly losing um, because you want to help somebody else. I mean, when you look at our police, our military, our firemen, um, the greatest thing that I've taught my boys, one of the greatest things is that when they see them, they always walk up and say, thank you for your service, because they can never hear that enough. Too often we forget that those people get up and they tell their loved ones goodbye in the morning, and they may not come home tonight. And so they are the true epitome of laying down your life for somebody else. Like they physically at times have laid their life down. And actually a lot of our freedoms, all of our freedoms, are because there are generations before us that have said, I will step up and answer the call to serve and protect. And if that means giving my own life, but I'll do that because I know that that means that generations beyond and my own family will have the freedoms and the protection that I hope that they do. And so it just goes back to a pure heart. You can go down and you can feed the homeless in a downtown and do amazing things. But if you do it just so you can tell people that you did it, then it was for the wrong reasons. The hope is you go down there to truly make them make them feel seen and valued and loved, and that they matter, because most of society just looks away or looks past them.
You posted something on your Instagram and LinkedIn the other day of this one guy. I forget his username. We'll have to put it in the description of this podcast. But he basically goes around and finds homeless people and gives them a haircut, and then gives them a whole fresh outfit, and they go away feeling not only valued and seen, but also it gives them kind of like a step in a positive direction, where all they really have to do is just say yes and accept the gift that this guy's willing to offer them. For me, that just is such a perfect encapsulation of not only the you not me mindset, but also just being the change. Is can you create, you know, positive change in other people's lives? Can you maybe help them take a step that they don't even see is, you know, in front of them or even a possibility for them? Um, I think that one of the biggest hurdles for a lot of people, though, is for the first part, they don't really know where to start. And maybe for the second part, there's a lot of people out there who are saying, well, you know, I'm just Jared or I'm just Chris. Like, you know, what can I even do? Sometimes it feels like, you know, there's this insurmountable mountain that's sitting in front of you of, you know, maybe you're someone who's like, I want to create world peace. Like, and you're like, well, where do I even start? So maybe you can just address like, um, just the person who maybe writes themselves off and says, you know, what kind of change am I able to make? I'm just one person. What would you say to them?
Yeah, and I mean, and that's where, I mean, even at the start of our book, what we wanted to try to do is make people see how powerful they really are. And one of the biggest things is sometimes just by helping people see the value that they have, because a lot of times we forget. A lot of times, whether we've had things not go our way or we're comparing ourselves to other people on social media, our in our own mind, our value starts to drop. And really, that's never true. You're never worthless. I remember there was somebody that was basically speaking to a large crowd, and they said, you know, I have this $50 bill. Does anybody want it? And all these people raised their hand. And he said, well, hold on. He's like, and he crumples it up, and he's like, who wants this $50 bill now? Everybody raised their hand. And then he put it on the ground. He stepped on it, and he rubbed his foot into the ground. He's like, how many people want it? And they all raised their hand still. And he's like, well, so why is it that when people make mistakes, when we're dirty, when we're broken, why do we all of a sudden lose our value when that piece of paper that has a 50 on it doesn't lose its value, no matter how much it's crumpled, no matter how dirty it gets, it still holds worth. And that's all of us. Every single one of us has just a value to us that if we really see the need outside of us, whether it's just what you start small with one person that you interact with, or whether you're already kind of doing this to an extent and you say, you know what, 5 or 10 people or every person I see, which is what I try to do, is how can I put a smile on somebody's face? And one of the stories I love to tell is when I took my oldest son to Chipotle one time to just grab a burrito, and we were standing in line and about 10 people deep. And I just, you know, always being, noticing what's happening in the room. The woman that was working there was not smiling. She was not happy. Obviously, things in her life maybe weren't going great. It was a bad day. I don't know what it was. Maybe people had been, you know, rude to her, or just, you know, thought she was nothing other than somebody serving their food. And I always kind of make it not a game, because it's not a game, but it's something I try to do, is put a smile on their face. And so when it was my turn, I walked up and she said, what can I get you? And I said, I'd like a burrito, please. And just a, you know, big smile. And she's like, what do you want on it? And so name all the things and the bowl. And then she passes it down to the next person. And I stopped and I pointed at it. I looked at her with a big smile and I said, now that burrito looks amazing. I cannot wait to eat it. Thank you so very much. And she smiled. It's as simple as that. And that's a small example of laying down your life for somebody. It's actually just stepping out of yourself and saying, I didn't have to do that. And it did, but it didn't cost me anything. It just took me effort. It took me noticing the need that she obviously wasn't feeling very, very loved or special. But at the same time, she wasn't finding joy in what she was doing, which is again why we started Unite Me, is helping people find joy in everything that they do, because there's purpose behind it. In every interaction, there's an opportunity to create unity. And so we pay for our burritos, we sit down, 20 minutes later, we get up, we go, you know, walk outside the door. And I remember opening the door for my son to walk out, and I just happened to look back, and there I see that woman serving people, and she stops and she smiles and she waves at me goodbye. And it took just a little bit to change someone's life. And it's not like I've changed her life forever, but I changed her for the moment. And maybe I was one of the few people to, you know, to actually encourage her for the day, to tell her thank you. I mean, the number of times that, whether it's walking through the airport and TSA, my goodness, tons of lines. People are waiting. They're late for their flights. They're stressed and everything. But I always tell them, thank you for your service. And those TSA people get this huge smile and they're shocked because nobody does that. And
Mm.
so, can you just see the need that people around you, whether it's the people cleaning the seats of the plane when you get off, whether it's, whether it's the most menial job you can think of to the highest job, can you make everybody know that they're valued and they have purpose in life?
So when you were mentioning TSA, I started thinking about a story that's in your book, another airport story, and it's about the woman at the rental car counter. I think it was in Newark, which Newark is easily top three worst airports in the entire world, as far as I know. I maybe need to visit some more to update that list, but for me, Newark is just terrible. Apologies to anyone who lives in Newark or New Jersey for that matter. But just share that story because I think this is just another great thing, and I think that you kind of brought it up when you were talking about the woman working at Chipotle. But I think so many people feel unrecognized, unseen, unvalued, um, and a lot of times it comes from like a me not you mindset from people who are either consuming a product from one of these companies or using their services or eating their food or whatever it might be. And there's such a me not you mindset to the point where it's like this person owes me total perfection, meeting every single one of my expectations, and we totally forget that there's another person on the other side of the interaction who has their own problems and their own issues and their own fears and their own anxieties. Um, and that most of the time people are trying to do the best that they can. Um, so if you could tell that story as well, because I think the listeners would really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, even you see this in corporate America today. There are some companies that just say you should be grateful to work here, instead of making them feel that you're grateful that they worked for you. There are two ways to look at it, and I can understand why people look at it from the two different sides. But how are you going to get the most out of your people in the fact of having them show up excited at work every day? Is it because you're telling them they should feel just gratitude because they're working for you? I mean, it's so arrogant, and not that maybe it's great that you're providing, yes, an income, but at the same time, can you just say we're just so thankful that you work for us, and we're so proud of the great work that you do. I mean, what a difference it is in that person's mind and that person's heart. So, with the story with the rental car, I was standing in line. I was probably two or three people deep, and this poor woman just was frazzled because they didn't have enough cars. People's reservations were wrong, so she was trying to do all this stuff, and just it wasn't the greatest managed place. Um, and so I just noticed, like time after time, just the way people talked to her, the way they kind of treated her, and she was getting frustrated. And I remember she, when I stepped up to line and she was trying to find my car and trying to, get something that would be suitable. She's like, I just want to walk on out of here. And I said, I hope you don't walk out of here. I said, I'm so thankful that you're here. I'm truly appreciative of the service you're providing me, and just thankful for you. And she just took a deep breath and went, you're the first person that's told me thank you today. And I've been here since 5 o'clock this morning. And it was like about 12:30 that day. And I said, you know what? But I'm sorry that nobody's told you thank you. But I am thankful that you're here. And I wish there was a way I could help you. And she said, that's okay, honey. She said, you know what? I'm just thankful to be able to help you. And so she starts working away, and, obviously everything worked out fine. I got my car. But in that interaction, though, I could tell people behind me were getting frustrated, and it was taking a while because, again, nobody likes to wait. Transactional a lot of times when it comes to these things. And we don't remember that there are real people and real hearts behind all of this. And no matter how bad the service is, most people aren't trying to do a bad job. And sometimes if they are doing a bad job, it's because of things maybe out of their control. And I just remember, I can't remember her exact words, but basically, when I left, I just said, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you again soon. And she said, anytime, honey. She said, it was so great to have you come by. And then I noticed when I was walking out, the next person behind me, when they stepped up to talk to her, they said thank you. And it was just this bit of a ripple effect slash chain reaction to where somebody just needed to kind of break the chain of being rude to this woman that maybe people thought wasn't giving the best service, or maybe that the management of the rental car company wasn't the greatest. They were disorganized. And I know nobody likes to wait. Nobody likes to be late. But at the same time, we're all still people. And I think it's just easy to fly off the handle and to get frustrated. And it's the hardest thing to do is to just calm yourself down and to remind yourself that I need to think about that person in front of me, not myself. And if I do that, ultimately what happens is a lot of times the service actually is even better. They actually even care about you more and they want to do a good job for you. That's not why you do it. Again, back to a pure heart. But the biggest thing is when other people know how much you care, it changes everything.
Yeah, and I think that that compounding and ripple effect that you mentioned is something that people often fail to see when they think about this kind of stuff. You know, they think it's just going to be a one-off, not even making a splash in the pond. But as you've mentioned in your book, you know, even the smallest stone that lands into a pond is going to send ripple effects out, you know, to the furthermost edges of that pond. That might be a small ripple compared to, you know, if you were to throw a huge boulder in. Um, but that one small pebble that you throw in may, because of the ripples, you know, start to stack on itself. And then if other people are also throwing their pebble in because they were affected by the ripple effect, then you're really starting to create a lot of change. Um, just to maybe land the plane here, if we're talking about, you know, just a handful of practical ways to be able to be the change, and really just the essence of that is living out a you, not me mindset to the people around you. You know, you mentioned smiles. You mentioned, you know, being really gracious and thankful and appreciative to people who are serving, to people who are, you know, working at places where you're consuming something. What are some other practical ways, maybe for someone at home, maybe at work, maybe just with relationships in their community? What's maybe one way for each of those arenas that someone can look to be the change?
Yeah, I think, I mean, when you look at home is how can you serve your spouse and tell them thank you. And, again, noticing when they've either had a busy day or something stressing them out, or how can you step in and take over something that maybe typically they do, or you just see them needing a break. It's an easy way to do it, but also again, just goes back to just saying thank you, and just reminding them of what they do. I mean, thankfully, I married a woman that's way better than I deserve, and what she does for our family is amazing. And so it's trying to find ways to remind her just how important she is, but also, I mean, it goes to our kids too. I mean, the generational impact that we have by taking the time to make sure our kids know how unconditionally loved they are, that regardless of, if you got a 40 on a test, or you played terribly in your sporting event, or some other aspect of their hobbies or the things they do fell short, is not casting them out and saying, well, you're terrible, you're a disgrace, you're whatever. I mean, but instead just asking them good questions, but also saying, you know what, my biggest joy is to watch you give your best. And I know that every time that you fall short, you grow, you learn from it. And so I think just making sure that our kids see that our kids see that no matter what, that we've always got their back. We'll always be there for them. And that's one of the things I tell my boys, is that there's nothing you will ever do that will ever cause me to not love you. I may not be happy with things you've done. I may disagree with some choices that you made, but I will never not love you. And the same goes with, with my spouse. Obviously, my spouse has a ton of grace for me, so I'm very thankful for that. But in the workplace, I mean, it's just looking at um, how can you take something off of somebody's shoulders where they're so busy, they have so much going on that they don't have time to do it all. There's only so many hours in a day, and at times there are a lot of people that are stretched too thin, and and maybe even overworked. And so just trying to find ways to ask questions, because also too, if you see somebody that maybe is normally pretty good at their job, that they're struggling a bit, they're not showing up and doing things with excellence, is maybe just asking a question and saying, hey, are you okay? You don't seem like yourself. Is everything okay at home? Is there anything I can do to help you? Because sometimes it's just asking that question, are you okay? And all of a sudden you might find a huge answer of things that are happening that you had no idea. There was a company that I've done a bunch of work with, and they were actually going to let somebody go because the person's work was not good. They were falling asleep at work, and there were all these issues. And I said, well, hold on just 1 second. Let me just actually talk to this guy for a bit. And with a not even 15 to 20 minute conversation, asking him how he's doing, found out that his wife was dealing with some serious health issues that nobody knew about. And he was staying up crazy hours trying to take care of her and then going to work the next day because he needed the job. And he was exhausted. And once we figured that out and we were able to figure out a support system to come alongside him, that guy's doing amazing work now. And he's an unbelievable employee. And it just took a little bit of time to ask a question like, how are you doing? Is everything okay? And then I think just in your community, finding ways to serve. Are there people, whether it's, at-risk youth, just whether it's going down to homeless shelters or doing, helping to do different food drives, whatever it is, like, can you just find a way to serve in your community, to look after people? There are so many people that are broken and hurting that we don't know because people put on a good face. So the question is just, how can you find a way to serve? How can you find a way to love? And how can you find a way to make sure people feel that they're valuable?
Well, Chris, I really appreciate it. This has been an awesome conversation. And if you're a listener out there and you're wanting to learn more about this, first of all, you can pick up Chris's book, The You Not Me Mindset. We also have a newsletter on Substack, the You Not Me letter. You can check us out at younotme.com, and then you can also follow Chris on Instagram and LinkedIn.